This is Debbie Georgiani. Thank you for listening to the Station of the Cross, proclaiming the fullness of truth with clarity and charity.
Heard around the world on your Android and Apple mobile devices.
The Simple Truth, rising up to explore the difficult topics of real life. Join us as we proclaim the good, the true, and the beautiful with the simple truth of Jesus Christ and His Holy Catholic Church through Scripture, tradition, and the Catechism. And now, your host, Jim Havens.
It is great to be back with you on The Simple Truth, where we proclaim the life-giving reality of Jesus and His Catholic Church. We consecrate everything to the Sacred Heart of Jesus through the Immaculate Heart of Mary and the pure, strong heart of Saint Joseph. It is Wholeness and Healing Monday, fighting to cultivate the health of the whole person, mind, body, and soul, with our co-host, my wonderful wife, Becky Havens. Becky is a Catholic wife and mother with a passion and calling to educate people about the importance of caring for our bodies that the Lord has blessed us with by living a healthy lifestyle. She's the author of Toxin Free in 12 Months, a 12-month guide to help you transition over to a toxin-free lifestyle. She also wrote a boycott list of over 300 pro-abortion companies. You can get them both for free. Learn more at her website, safehavensmama.com. Our topic today is partially part of that book, the March section of it, which is entitled Reducing Your Wi-Fi Exposure. But it's even much more than that. Our topic today, are EMFs dangerous? So that's what we're getting into today. We're going to break into what are EMFs. We'll get some understanding there, and then are they dangerous? What do we need to know? Maybe how do we navigate this whole this whole field of EMFs that we're talking about here? But we do have to make it clear we're not doctors, we're not scientists. Just regular people looking to live well, raise our family. We believe in objective truth and asking questions when things don't make sense. We're not giving out any medical advice, but we are looking to offer a forum here today. We want to hear from you. We already got some survey responses. Thank you for that. We send out a Monday morning survey on each show that we do. And if you're not on that email as getting that survey and you want in, please go to thestationofthecross.com, click on the Simple Truth page, scroll down, put your email address in, you'll get that Monday survey. And so we love to get responses that way, but the best way to get your response in, your question, comment, anything on this topic today is to give us a call. We can't read every survey response. We do our best to get as many as we can in, but when you make a call, then we can definitely get you into the show, and we love to hear from you that way as well. So EMFs, are EMFs dangerous? That's the topic today. We'll put the phone number out in just a little bit, but Becky, anything you want to share today by way of introduction on this topic?
Yeah, so I feel like this is a great topic to kind of talk about because there's a lot of news out there. People hear different things. We use our computers, we use our cell phones all day long. Some people, that's what they work on for 8 to 10 hours a day. So you hear different things pop up. Is this safe? Is this not? And I just feel like it's important to get the information out there, and you guys can determine what's best for you. But just to know, there have been warnings. We can't just use these electronics and think maybe nothing will affect us. So I think it's just important to have the conversation and get out the information that's out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So just to even have this as a category in our intellect, to even be considering this, what is this? What is this category? What do we need to know? EMFs. So Becky, we did ask in the survey this morning, we asked the folks, do you know what EMFs are? About 55% said yes. So about half of the people, they are not aware of what EMFs are. So just explaining it, I think, is important. What can you tell us just by way of definition? What are EMFs?
So EMFs basically are electric and magnetic fields. They're invisible areas of energy, often referred to as radiation. They're associated with the use of electrical power, various forms of natural and man-made lighting. They're typically grouped in two different ways. So there's non-ionizing and then ionizing. So non-ionizing would be the level of the lower level radiation, which studies haven't really said this, but this is, when you look this up, this is what they're saying. It's perceived as harmless to humans, but research is coming out that might not be so. But this would be microwave, cell phones, Bluetooth, power lines, Wi-Fi. They even have MRIs in there, computers, smart meters, and then you have the ionizing, which would be the high levels of radiation, which has the potential for cellular and DNA damage. And this would be the categories of X-rays, UV light, sunlight, some sorts of gamma rays. Yeah. And that's more of like the dangerous ones where you can get exposed to a high amount in a short amount of time, like certain X-rays, like CAT scans and such like that.
Yeah, I think I think a lot of people are aware of the X-rays, right? I mean, you go in, you get an X-ray, the woman or the man who's the X-ray technician, they come out, they put that big weighted vest on you or whatever it is. They try to protect you from the what is it called here? The EMF that way from the X-rays, right? And so
it's the radiation. Yeah.
Yep. So these are the higher frequency EMFs. I'm starting to understand the subcategories here. So yeah, then they go back in another room. They don't want to be in there, right? Obviously. So we know that there's a problem here. We know that those are dangerous in some sense. And so yeah, just to understand that what that is, these EMFs, these higher frequency ones in the ionizing radiation part of the electromagnetic spectrum, these can damage DNA or cells directly. So I think folks are aware of that, but it's these low to mid frequency EMFs. And to say, all right, what's the danger here? What are these all about? And if I could just add one more distinction, I thought this was kind of interesting. I found this in all places on the cancer.gov website, talking about getting at a definition here. And it says that as far as electromagnetic fields go, it breaks them down here. It says electric and magnetic fields are invisible areas of energy, also called radiation, that are produced by electricity, which is the movement of electrons or current through a wire. An electric field is produced by voltage, which is the pressure used to push the electrons through the wire, much like water being pushed through a pipe. As the voltage increases, the electric field increases in strength. Electric fields are measured in volts per meter. A magnetic field results from the flow of current through wires or electrical devices and increase in strength. As the current increases, the strength of a magnetic field decreases rapidly with increasing distance from its source. Magnetic fields are measured in microteslas. Electric fields are produced whether or not a device is turned on, whereas magnetic fields are produced only when current is flowing, which usually requires a device to be turned on. Power lines produce magnetic fields continuously because current is always flowing through them. Electric fields are easily shielded or weakened by walls or other objects, whereas magnetic fields can pass through buildings, living things, and other materials. So the electric and the magnetic fields together are being referred to as electromagnetic fields, EMFs. So that's what we're talking about. And then you've got those two categories, the higher frequency EMFs, like the X-rays. Those are the ionizing ones. And then you've got the low to mid frequency EMFs. And those are the Wi-Fi and everything else that we're talking about. And it says here in this description, it says these EMFs in the non-ionizing radiation part of the electromagnetic spectrum are not known to damage DNA or cells directly. So they put that little caveat in there, directly. Does that matter? Does that mean anything to you, Becky?
Yeah, I think they know if they word it differently, they can kind of get away with it. So during the 1990s, some studies were coming out, and they kind of, before they knew all of this, they wanted to know what was going on. So they did some studies and some research on EMFs, more on the low frequency stuff. So like your microwaves, like home appliances, power lines, because, they were seeing an increased level of cancer in children, especially like clusters. And they did find a increased risk for childhood leukemia, which was really interesting. So why they didn't continue to go down that road publicly, I don't know, but I'm assuming that they did privately. And so that's why they know the dangers. And that's why cancer websites cannot disclose certain information, but they can say, so then in May 2011, the WHO actually classified radioelectromagnetic fields as a category 2B as potentially carcinogenic. So if they're able to do that publicly, then they obviously know there's something going on here. There's so many studies. It's because the United States is connected with all of the cell phone companies, and because there's money in this, a lot of it has been hidden. So I was watching something earlier, and it had to be done in Australia, and a woman that's highly recognized in America, she had to go to Australia to give the talk there because United States, they don't let you talk about stuff like that. You think they think you're crazy, or they just dismiss it, or they won't let it be known. And so other places you're free to talk about it. So it's kind of crazy that we're really behind on this. I actually don't think we're behind on it. I think it's just that the information is being withheld. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's very interesting. Let's get the phone number out there. If you want to call in any question or comment today, we'd love to hear from you on this topic. Are EMFs dangerous? And give us a call, 1-877-511-5483. That's 1-877-511-5483. And, I was watching one doctor on this, and he was saying, hey, science right now is trying to tell everybody, look, it's safe, right? But he said, but you got to remember, science also said asbestos was safe for 99 years. Now, I want to say, I think that argument is one to keep in mind, right? To say, like, let's be skeptical of the science, but also let's be skeptical of all claims. And let's try to look for the objective truth. So you can't just say all science is wrong just because it was wrong about asbestos, but you can say, let's be skeptical. Let's dig into this a little further. That's what we're going to do when we get back. Stay tuned.
Seasons change, and radio programming changes too. In an effort to offer you the best in Catholic radio, we're happy to announce our new radio lineup starting Monday, August 28th. Weekdays at 10 a.m., we'll bring you classic episodes of Mother Angelica. This allows Mother Miriam to fulfill her religious obligations and be with you more regularly now at 2 p.m. Weekday evenings at 6, we have an exciting new program entitled Ask a Priest Live, followed by Catholic Answers Live at 7 and Jesus 911 at 8, with the exception of Thursdays where The World Over with Raymond Arroyo remains in its 8 p.m. slot. That's Mother Angelica Classics at 10, Mother Miriam Live at 2, Ask a Priest Live at 6, Catholic Answers Live at 7, and Jesus 911 at 8, starting Monday, August 28th.
This is Steve Gleason with your 1-minute tool for Catholic evangelism. Here's the question for your non-Catholic friend. Who did God use to get John the Baptist filled with the Holy Spirit? Well, here's your 3 best friendship tools for Catholic evangelism. Here's your choices. Could it have been Simeon or St. Joseph or maybe an unknown prophet? Maybe Jesus? Who was it? Your answer in a moment. Secondly, so what methods do we see in the New Testament for Christians receiving the Holy Spirit? Well, it was usually through the laying on of hands. Peter and John laid hands on those in Samaria. St. Paul laid hands on those believers in Ephesus. Prior to that, we see Jesus merely breathing on the apostles. So here's your answer. A greeting. Yes, a greeting. You see, after Gabriel's powerful annunciation to the Virgin Mary, a simple, profound greeting from Mary to Elizabeth caused John the Baptist to be filled with the Holy Spirit. And as a result, he leaped in her womb. Now, to all my daring Pentecostal church friends, no matter how much you pray in tongues over someone, this method won't work. Why? Because it's not a method. It was the divine team of the Blessed Trinity, Gabriel, Mary, and Elizabeth, and that, my friend, will not happen again.
Welcome back to The Simple Truth, Wholeness and Healing Monday. Jim and Becky Havens here. Remember to go to Safe Haven's Mama Becky's website if you want those free resources or any more information. We're digging into various things regarding wholeness and healing. But today we're getting into the topic of, are EMFs dangerous. If you want to give a call, now's the time to do so. 1-877-511-5483. That's 1-877-511-5483. Let's start with a clip here. Now, this is from 7 years ago, so this category's been out there. People have been aware that, hey, is this dangerous? Is this not dangerous? What is this study saying? What's that study saying? Here it is on ABC World News Tonight, breaking through into the mainstream media, talking about cell phones and cancer. Again, from 7 years ago, here it is.
To the debate over cell phones and cancer now reignited. A major government study tonight of brain and heart tumors in male rats that had been exposed to radio frequency waves like those from cell phones. Here's ABC's Eva Pilgrim.
Tonight, a new government study reigniting the old debate over whether cell phones could cause cancer. Researchers exposed rats to high doses of cell phone radiation, 9 hours a day through their entire lives, about 6 times the amount of radiation an average person gets during a cell phone call. The early findings show a slight increase in cancerous tumors in the brains and hearts of male rats, but curiously, not the females.
And so I think that it's important for, as a public health issue, to at least try to answer that question, to give people guidance as to how they can, change or not change their behavior.
All right, so there it is, 7 years ago from ABC News, and certainly not a definitive study, but something just to say, hey, here's an animal study, and we're seeing some results that there's something going on here. When we asked people in the survey, are you aware of any potential danger that EMFs could be causing? And if so, explain. 55% said no. Now, remember, half of the folks, they weren't even sure what EMFs were. So I'm guessing those that did know are the ones that said could even answer yes. And then those who answered yes, they had some different views here. One said, yes, between our cell phones and Wi-Fi, I think we are putting our health in danger. Another said they could raise your cancer levels if exposed to them over time. Another said, I am aware that they're dangerous, but would like more specifics. Another said, it's unknown. And another said brain damage. So we've got quite a spectrum here from, I think there's maybe something, but it's unknown, or maybe there's something, but I'd like to know more, or it causes brain damage. So I don't know where you're at on this spectrum, Becky, but I'm cautious. I'm skeptical of all of it, but I think maybe I've got kind of a middle ground on this. But Becky, where are you when it comes to taking a look at everything that you've seen, and what's your thought on the potential danger of EMFs?
Yeah, I've done a lot of research on this mainly because I remember at one point when we were living in a different part of Florida, many years ago, and we had a Wi-Fi router in our room. And I remember suffering from a lot of different strange things. And I thought maybe it's a new house, maybe it's, I didn't know what it was. And then years later, after I heard of something called like hypersensitivity to Wi-Fi, it sounds weird, but it's something and it's out there. And I compared some of my symptoms to that, and I thought, okay, well, maybe that was something I was struggling with. And so I looked into it and did a lot of research and thought, yeah, it's probably not good to have a Wi-Fi router, 5 feet away from your sleeping, where you're sleeping every night. It is, this constant power being emitted, all day long. And so it has the possibility to interfere with probably a lot of things within your body. Nighttime is when you're meant to rest and restore. So that prompted me to look more into it. And I'm definitely on the spectrum of, yes, this is dangerous. We have to be careful. I think we, as the public, are feeling like we're in the beginning of it. I think there's many people who know a lot more than us, who know that there are serious dangers. But maybe not everything's public. But when you start to look into it, there is a ton of studies actually out there. I don't know why they're not brought up. I think probably because people are addicted to their cell phones, and because not even addicted to it, but they need it for work. I mean, it's really difficult to live in society without a cell phone at this point. Doesn't say it can't be done. But you almost don't want to know everything. But I think that, as kids, get cell phones earlier and earlier, and there is a lot of studies on this actually, that children are way more susceptible to higher amounts of radiation because their brain is not finished developing. And so it absorbs a lot quicker and a lot more throughout their whole body than it would on a fully grown adult. And so, so seeing how many children, have phones and how long it's going to go for and what are the effects going to be for them in the long run when they've been using this for 20 years over time. Obviously, I don't think it's like you use it for a week and you're going to get cancer, but it's something that, over time, you are going to have some effects from it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I saw Elon Musk has famously commented on this. And he said, there's no problem with cell phones. You could wear a whole helmet of cell phones and you'd be just fine. So that's Elon Musk's take. But I will say, just looking at, just objectively taking a look at what's out there, there is certainly reason for pause. So let me give some sort of an example here. So again, this is from the cancer.gov website. Under the question of why are non-ionizing EMFs studied in relation to cancer, it says this. It says some scientists have speculated that the low frequency EMFs could cause cancer through other mechanisms. So this is, again, speaking to that little caveat they put in there of, well, not directly. So this is when they're talking about, okay, well, how does it work if it's not directly? They say through other mechanisms such as by reducing levels of the hormone melatonin. There is some evidence that melatonin may suppress the development of certain tumors. And then studies of animals have not provided any indications that exposure to the low frequency EMFs are associated with cancer. It says the few high quality studies in animals have provided no evidence that Wi-Fi is harmful to health. And then it goes on to say that although there is no known mechanism by which non-ionizing EMFs could damage DNA and cause cancer, even a small increase in risk would be of clinical importance given how widespread exposure to these fields is. And so that just there, and then they get into the childhood studies, and they do admit to various childhood studies connecting to childhood leukemia and power lines and such. It may be a fairly low risk, but there's something there based on what they're showing in a number of studies that they cite. But they want to kind of minimize it. They want to sort of walk it back. But there's something certainly there, and they're being clear. They're not hiding it altogether. They're saying, there have been some studies. But let me ask you about this, Becky. So they say, we don't know. We don't know is basically their answer. But they're saying, they do admit, they say, but if it was only even a small increase in risk, it would be important because the exposure is so widespread to these fields, and they're relatively new, obviously, in human history. So in a certain sense, I've heard some say we're all kind of part of this human trial. We're all part of this experiment, and we'll see how it ends up. I don't know. The only anecdotal evidence that I think I can speak to is sometimes if I'm using my computer for a long period of time, and using kind of the pad with my fingers, the way that the mouse works on the computer, the way touching it with my fingers for a long period of time, my fingers start to have a metallic feeling to them. And I've had this on a few occasions when I've had to do long amounts of work on the computer, and it's extremely unpleasant, and it's very odd. And so there's something to that. I don't know what that is, but there's something going on there. And again, the distance is important. We're going to talk more about things that we can do, I think, getting into the next segment. And there's a lot of things that I think just make sense of easy things you can do, low investment that could have a high yield for us. But the only other thing I'll say too is there is inconvenience to some of this. So you took the router out of our bedroom. We don't have it in the bedroom anymore for the Wi-Fi. I think that is smart. What we do have, though, is we've got the internet on a switch so that you can turn it off at night. And that's fine, right? Turn it off at night. It reduces the exposure a little bit. But then you got to remember to turn it back on in the morning, right? And then when you turn it back on, it takes about 5 minutes for it to reboot and everything. And if you forget to turn it back on and right when you're about to do work, the internet's off, that can be a little bit irritating. Or if you're doing some work and somebody by accident knocks that switch down and then it takes another 5 minutes to get things going again. I have had that happen even during a broadcast, so sometimes those things can be a little bit inconvenient. So there are inconveniences to some of this stuff. But at the same time, it is pretty low investment that could help you out in a big way. Becky, any thoughts?
Yeah, and that's good. If you turn your Wi-Fi at night, turn your Wi-Fi off at night, you definitely want to turn it back on in the morning, because here's the thing: if you're using Wi-Fi, this is why they say, like, driving in a car, your Wi-Fi exposure is way higher, because your phone is searching everywhere for signals, and so that increases the radiation frequency to larger degrees. So if you're using your phone within the house and the Wi-Fi is off, it's actually creating a higher amount of radiation coming at you. So yeah, you definitely want to plug into your own Wi-Fi, and when you turn it on. And it's funny because the studies that you mentioned before, so they talk about how it inhibits melatonin. And I think maybe they're missing the point. I'm sure they know this, but when you think about melatonin, and we've done a show before on sleep, and blue light, which is emitted from electronics, is the number one inhibitor of melatonin. So it makes sense that people are using their phones all day long, and especially into the night after the sun has gone down. All they're being exposed to is blue light. And so therefore your melatonin is going to decrease, and therefore your risk of cancer would go up naturally. So even if they're not finding the direct correlation between the radiation, the blue light in itself that's coming from the screens and computers is an issue. You know what I mean? So I'm not sure why they're not specifying on that. I know they even offer things on your phone to make it a warm light, or you can get blue light covers and blue light glasses now. So that's out there. People know that because they have to work at night sometimes, and they want to make sure they're not exposing themselves to that. So I don't know. I think that, when it comes to the Wi-Fi, there are so many studies out there. And a great place to go to, actually, is where I found a lot of stuff, is defendershield.com. They do sell some products to help you. I don't know, I guess they call it they call it Defender Shields, but there's a whole range of products out there. A lot of people sell them, and it just decreases the amount of radiation that maybe your phone gives off. I've gotten some of those before. I've done that. I don't know for sure. Of course, you have to use it the right way. You want to make sure that you're not giving yourself more radiation. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. It's a thing, but yeah, that's a great website to kind of go to. I can talk about those later.
Sure.
But yes, defendershield.com.
Yep. When we get back, we'll get into some of those solutions to help you out. But this is an area of skepticism for me. When you see high-priced solutions, I would say stay away from those. We're going to give you some that are not high-priced solutions, but easy things, simple things, low-cost things that you can do. I would not be going in for some high-cost options and trying to mitigate all of this. But if you've got a call, a question, a comment, some experience, some anecdotal evidence, anything you want to share on this, 1-877-511-5483. That's 1-877-511-5483. We'll be right back. Stay tuned.
This is Franciscan Media's Saint of the Day for August 21st. Today we celebrate Pope St. Pius X. Born into a poor Italian family in 1835, Joseph Sarto was elected pope at age 68. Ever mindful of his humble origins, he was often embarrassed by the splendor of the papal court. Pope Pius was intensely interested in politics and encouraged Italian Catholics to become more involved politically. One of his first papal acts was ending the supposed right of governments to interfere in papal elections. Pius X is perhaps best remembered for his encouragement of the frequent reception of Holy Communion, especially by children. In 1910, he declared that children had reached the age of reason at age 7 and should therefore be permitted to receive the Eucharist. On the 11th anniversary of his papal election, Europe was plunged into the First World War. Pius had foreseen it, but the war's impact troubled him deeply. Blessed with great empathy, he understood the trials of life, and his great heart wanted to comfort everyone. "I would gladly give my life to save my poor children from this ghastly scourge," he said. The Holy Father died in 1914 and was canonized in 1954. There's more about the saints, along with inspiration and Catholic resources, at our website, saintoftheday.org. From Franciscan Media, this has been Saint of the Day.
The Catholic Current, bringing Christ to the world and the world to Christ.
We've seen historically, first there was a war against the church, and then there was a war against Christ, and then there was a war against Creator, and now there's a war against creature. So what it seems to me is a rage against everything that's real.
The Catholic Current, 5 p.m. Eastern, from the Station of the Cross and on the iCatholic Radio mobile app.
Back to the simple truth. Jim and Becky Havens here. Wholeness and Healing Monday. Our topic today, are EMFs dangerous? If you want to jump in, 1-877-511-5483. That's 1-877-511-5483. Let's go to the phone lines now. Karen from Stowe, Massachusetts. Welcome to the program. What are your thoughts today?
Well, I don't know if this is relevant to what you've been speaking about, but I've wondered for a long time about the impact of all of this radiation and all of that energy out there affecting animals and birds and insects that have a homing pattern. After all this time, people are concerned about bees, and things that there's been, I guess, different confusion that happens in some bee colonies. And we know that over the years, so many whales have been beached. And it makes sense to me that a number of these animals, if they have homing patterns, and it makes sense that it would have something to do with some energy in the atmosphere. So I didn't know whether that was relevant.
Yeah, interesting thought, Karen. We thank you for calling in and sharing it. Becky, any thought on that? Have you seen anything in that regard?
Yes, I think you're onto something, and they're happy to release the studies on the animals. They don't really want to release too many on the humans, but they did. I just checked this out. They did a 150-page study of over 1,200 peer-reviewed studies, finds that birds, insects, and animals are uniquely sensitive to wireless radiation. It identifies low-level wireless as a pollutant and warns against escalating radiation levels with 5G technology. So it's out there. Yeah, it is affecting animals as well. You see a lot of birds sitting on wires, on cell phone towers. And you wonder, if it's having an effect on us, it probably is having an effect on them as well.
Very interesting. All right. Yeah. Thank you for that call, Karen. We appreciate it. If anybody else wants to call in, any question, comment, 1-877-511-5483. We did ask folks in the morning survey, have you experienced any negative effects from EMFs? We got a lot of not sures and don't knows, and 0 answered yes, other than one said, I don't sleep as well when I'm around them. And another said, I'm not sure, possible memory and sleep issues for my family and I. Becky, anything else you want to share? I think you mentioned it a little bit, but regarding sleep and EMFs.
Yeah, I think this is a big part of what kind of grabbed my attention was when I did look into a lot of the studies. Actually, there are a ton of effects, health effects that have been studied and that are known, especially effects on fertility. They broke it into categories: short-term health effects, permanent health effects, and electrical sensitivity. So short-term health effects could be headaches, tingling and burning, sensation, aches and pains, decreased sperm motility, your hands hurt or feel funny. Permanent health effects would be brain tumors. I mean, they have data that, when men carry cell phones in their pocket, they are associated with decreased level of sperm. That's out there. That's not anything hidden, that it gets into their bone. And I'm talking about like everyday use, constant use. It's going to have an effect after a while. certain types of cancers. I know that they were finding women were getting more increased risk of breast cancer because they were actually putting their phone into their bra as like a pocket, which seems like a horrible idea. And they realized that, yes, that is having an effect. There are studies that show that these low-level frequencies do have they can mutate your cells and have difficulties on the DNA. So I'm not sure. I didn't look in too much of that, but that was something they mentioned. Even something called, I thought this is funny, toasted skin syndrome. I had to look that up because it's a strange thing to hear, but it's basically hyperpigmentation of the skin. So something about it's like literally burning your skin. And when you think of radiation, yes, that is what it does. So that's probably with very close proximity to the source. And then you have the electrical sensitivity where the headaches come into play, concentration or memory loss, tingling and burning, sleeping problems, aches and pains, and again, things with your hands and cognitive impairment. So there is a lot of studies. There were some done on women as well, and even had an effect on follicle growth regarding the healthy eggs for fertilization were decreased. So yeah, I don't know. It's out there and it's crazy. I mean, I don't think that we know that we're experiencing them because we might not be experiencing like those quick short-term effects as much as we realize. But I think in the long run, a lot of the cancers are increasing, and maybe this is one of the reasons why.
Yeah, interesting. And yeah, a couple other things I want to get in here in terms of the dangers, the studies. And again, the source that I'm kind of looking at here on these things is cancer.gov, which people have a right to be skeptical of. I'd say anything from the government, but especially anything regarding cancer. You know, you might think, well, they don't have any incentive to hide this stuff. Why wouldn't they be forthright with it? Okay. In another sense, it wouldn't take too much thinking to figure out why they would maybe have some motivation to not tell the full truth on some things. But still, let's take a look at it and just see exactly what it says. I thought these two bits were rather interesting. One talks about exposure from electrical appliances. Now, again, these are you're exposed to these magnetic fields when the appliances are on, right? And so it says here that another way that children can be exposed to magnetic fields is from household electrical appliances. Although magnetic fields near many electrical appliances are higher than those near power lines, appliances contribute less to a person's total exposure to magnetic fields because most appliances are used for only short periods of time. And moving even a short distance from most electrical appliances reduces exposure dramatically. Again, studies have not found consistent evidence for an association between the use of household electrical appliances and risk of childhood leukemia, which admits that they found some evidence. It's just not consistent in whatever their definition of consistent would be. So that's interesting. And to understand that you're getting higher magnetic fields, you're getting higher exposure in those than you're getting from power lines. But it's just because they're in short bursts, it's saying maybe not as concerning. But again, the protocol ought to be rather easy on that one. When you turn these appliances on, you just get away from them. It says even a short distance away from them, you can reduce it dramatically. I remember, Becky, that when we used to have a microwave back in the day, and one of the things was don't stand in front of the microwave when it was on. And I think I probably had some fun with you on that one, but you're probably right. It's not that you're wrong about it. It's just that when things are new, maybe, we can be a little bit overly skeptical at times, but it makes a lot of sense that you wouldn't stand in front of your microwave when it's on, especially when you start to understand how the science behind EMFs and how they work. One other thing it says here is parental exposure and risk in offspring. Several studies have examined possible associations between maternal or paternal exposure to high levels of magnetic fields before conception and or during pregnancy and the risk of cancer in their future children. The results to date have been inconsistent. this question requires further evaluation. So that's rather interesting. And then again, when you get into the solutions here, I think a lot of it is based on looking at the evidence and saying, okay, a lot of it seems to be you want to get away from it, at least as much distance as possible, certainly lessen the exposure as much as you can. And also it seems there's a factor here. The younger you are, the worse it seems to be. I don't know if that's kind of like a bell curve and that gets worse again as you get into your elderly years. I don't know, but it seems to be in the studies that for children and even preborn children that there seems to be more possible dangers there. Anything else on the dangers, Becky, before we really get into the solutions?
Yeah, and like I shared earlier, it's because children have not fully developed. So you think of a baby when they first come out, their head has literally like not fully formed so that they could come out of the birth canal, like their skull shifted, you know what I mean? And so it doesn't fully come into place in the proper way for years. You still even have a small little hole up here. So if your brain is right there, a baby's brain, and then like radiation is going around, there's no skull, there's nothing hard to protect. Like you said, some of these frequencies, you just need a wall. You just need something in between and it can stop. And so the skull can act like that. But for a little child, it's not fully formed, it's still thin. It's going to have a greater impact on them. So yeah, I feel like there is a lot of dangers. I mean, there's a lot of studies out there, and another thing that is really interesting that I kind of looked into was smart meters. Now, these are the things on the side of your house, and this got some really big coverage in the mainstream media when the electrical companies were coming around and just switching everybody's old analog meters to smart meters. Because remember, the guy would come over and he would check your meter and write it down, and you'd wonder who that guy was outside wandering around, what was like the meter guy. So of course they found a smarter way, and they created a smart meter, and that way they could put a frequency in there and just read it from your house, from their station, wherever they're located. They could get rid of that middleman, and then they could just do it this way, save a lot of money. But what came with that, people were noticing, was extreme amounts of radiation then coming into their house, because a lot of times it's on the side of the house. It could be just one small wall in between that and your bedroom. And so they did have a study on PubMed coming in from Australia when these mandated smart meters were put into place in Victoria. And so they removed all of the old ones and put in the smart meters. And they had a ton of people come out and said, I'm experiencing like these strange health effects. Is there any, this is the only thing that's changed. It's right near my bedroom. And so they did a study on it, and it came out in 2006, it says. And yeah, some of the symptoms were insomnia, headaches, tinnitus, fatigue, cognitive disturbances, abnormal sensations, and dizziness. A lot of times people have issues with heart palpitations because of the radiation, because of the energy going in. It can even mess with your heart if it's strong enough, which is strange. There's issues with this, and they're just kind of coming around and doing things without your permission on your house, and because they kind of own you in that way, and it's really difficult to say, no, I don't want this, and you have to file a claim and all of this. But there's some ways to negate it, but still it can be an issue, especially if you're sleeping right near it. So I kind of found that interesting. That's another thing to just keep in mind, where its placement is. You can look that up and do some research on your own. There's a ton of information out on that. But yeah, it's real, and there is a lot of studies to kind of work with to see on that as well.
All right. Yeah. The number to call if you want to get in any question or comment, 1-877-511-5483. Our topic today is EMFs, asking the question, are EMFs dangerous? And Becky's saying yes. I'm saying okay, but to what degree, and what do we do about it? And we're going to dive into that when we get back, that what do we do about it? We promise to get to those solutions when we get back. We'll give you a whole bunch, starting off with what you told us in the survey. We'll start off with some great advice there. But if you want to call in, give some advice on what we can do about it, again, the number to call is 1-877-511-5483. That's 1-877-511-5483. And again, one simple thing, the virtue of temperance is always going to be good, right? We want to be temperate in every area, self-mastery, self-control, keep good things in right order. And so when we're using these electronics and all of these things, our phones, we want to limit the time we're with them anyway. We should have some better things to do than to be attached to them. We'll be right back. Stay tuned.
This is Life News Radio. I'm Jim Anderson. It remains unclear whether the U.S. Supreme Court, with no disparate rulings between U.S. appeals courts, will involve itself in the FDA chemical abortion court case. Examination of the Fifth Circuit Court ruling last week exposes reckless elimination of the system to report risks faced by women taking abortion pills. While pro-life leaders stress that abortion pills are never safe for the child, restoring safety for mothers is a first step in reprioritizing women's health over interests of the abortion industry. Abortion-friendly reporters continue to parse polling numbers to soften the impact of pro-life sentiment on the abortion industry. Yet raw numbers in a new AP poll show an aggregate of 73% of Americans opposing unlimited abortion. This is Life News Radio. In other headlines, a temporary restriction against an abortion ban has been lifted by a Louisiana appeals court. 7 guilty verdicts were rendered Friday against a UK neonatal nurse accused of professional murder. Oregon is preparing to try stopping pro-life prayer outside abortion businesses. Washington Governor Jay Inslee is being sued for providing children gender or abortion therapies hidden from parents. A Catholic bishop is taking on diabolical religious celebration of abortions in New Mexico. Doctors engaging the decades-old medical practice of hormone replacement when used to reverse chemical abortions may soon face medical discipline in Colorado. And lastly, a pro-life leader in Pennsylvania is at Life News urging moms to seek obstetric care from pro-life doctors. Maria Gallagher says it remains both very practical and important to entrust the care of preborn children to those who truly respect life in the womb. For pro-life headlines delivered to your email address daily, sign up at lifenews.com. This has been Life News Radio.
Welcome back to The Simple Truth. Jim and Becky Havens here, Wholeness and Healing Monday, talking about EMFs today, electromagnetic fields. Are EMFs dangerous? And we are getting into the solutions in just a moment, some things that we can do that are going to be helpful to us. But first, I think we've got a caller on the line that wants to talk a little bit further on the dangers. So we want to get that in. Marianne in New York, thank you for your call today. What's on your mind?
Wondering if there's been any studies done about the effect of sonograms. My daughter works for a stork bus, and she volunteers for stork bus, and she's trained in doing sonograms. And while she was pregnant, she would do sonograms of her baby almost every week. And when I mentioned it to her, because when I was pregnant, I always just wanted one sonogram per pregnancy. We figure out the due date, and then that was the end of it. But she would do it, and she said that there was a different type. It wasn't the same radio frequency that they used back years ago. So I was just wondering if you knew anything about that, or if there's been any studies about that.
Yeah, thank you for the call, Marianne. Great question, great thought. And Becky, I think you know a thing or two about this. I remember some conversations with you through various pregnancies. What have you figured out here?
Yeah, I think you're onto something there, because I did dive into that a little bit, because you just don't know. As I've gotten older and with my later pregnancies, I wasn't as nervous about it, because you do want to make sure the baby is healthy and okay. So, I know some women though who totally avoid all of it. They don't do any sonograms, and that's their decision as well. But I would suggest if you go on Chris Kresser, so that's Chris, Kresser, he has a section on natural childbirth and ultrasounds not as safe as commonly thought. I think there are some studies out there that do show that there can be some difficulties with this, and especially like the longer sonograms, the more that you're sonogramming the baby, the more issues you can have. And so, yeah, there's some studies out there if you want to take a look at that and then to kind of make the best decision from that. But yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And God bless your daughter working to help some pregnant moms in need. Very, very good. Awesome witness. So we appreciate that today as well. Thank you, Marianne. All right. We got to get to some solutions. By the way, Becky, people can find some solutions, 6 simple ways to reduce Wi-Fi exposure. You put that in your book that is available, that ebook, free ebook at safehavensmama.com under the March heading, reducing your Wi-Fi exposure. I don't think we can get through all of that, but you can give us some good ones in just a moment. First, let's see what the survey picked up from the listeners. We asked this: are you aware of any ways to minimize exposure to EMFs? These are a few of the good pieces of advice we got. One says, keep your phone away from you at night. Use headphones instead of keeping your phone on your ear when you talk. That's a big one, obviously. Turn your Wi-Fi off at night. Another said, yes, stay clear of power transfer stations. Try not to walk under power lines. Give yourself at least 1 foot away from electricity sources. Again, talking about distance there. And then another says, I'm aware of some things you can buy, but I don't know if they're effective. And Becky, let's just start there real quick. Am I right in thinking the more expensive the solution is on this one, the more you want to be skeptical and say, well, is this somebody just trying to sell me a high priced product? Do you need expensive things? I wouldn't go. I personally would say I'm not seeing a high enough risk to justify spending a bunch of money on this, but there are some simple solutions, aren't there?
Yeah, there are. I mean, it depends on where you're at. If you're having symptoms, I know that I've gone way in the other direction with this and wanted to change everything in the house. We bought one of those meter detectors. It was you have to be really careful with this stuff because you can get a little bit obsessive, and in the end, there's only so much you can do, and God is in control. And he's going to take care of you. He knows what Wi-Fi is. He knows what's going on. So spending a ton of money on something that you're kind of unsure of, I would say would probably not be the best, but there is a lot of stuff out there. I mean, there's even EMF blocking paint, and there is studies behind this. They use that for certain, buildings that need that. So there's a lot of blockers or Faraday cages, and the science behind it says that it works, but for everyday cell phone use, I'm not sure. I think there are way easier ways to kind of avoid it than to get kind of going down that rabbit hole, because it's endless, and then you want to be how do I know this is working? Should I buy a meter and try it? And yeah, you can lose peace in that, and I always feel like that's when the devil can kind of get in and start to really take your peace, and it's not good. I've been there. So, So that's why I did this one chapter on here, because I just wanted simple, easy ways to kind of reduce exposure. And I've been good with this, with what we've done. I convinced my husband, Jim, to, turn the Wi-Fi off at night. And I always would say, you're going to thank me one day, many years down the road, when we find out what's really going on. Because if there even is a concern, and especially we have young kids and they're sleeping in this, why not just try it? If it's not a difficult thing, why not try it? So we did install, it's not some kind of difficult thing. All it is, it's a switch, and you can just flick it off. I used to unplug it every night, which was a pain, because then you had to plug it in and you had to reach way behind the dresser. It's really not ideal, but Tech Wellness is a website that I kind of like, and she has a little plug-in meter. Yes, people can monetize off of stuff like this, but they also are trying to offer a solution for things like this. So I also did get, they have a little phone stand, so it's good to keep your phone on just a little stand. And then like a phone pen, I find really easy to use, so your finger's not constantly touching your cell phone and you're not even touching it. So that's another way to keep the distance, because even like 2 to 4 to 6 feet makes a huge difference in these type of radiations, just keeping it away from your body, away from your face. They say that the very worst time to have a cell phone by your head or your body is when you're answering a phone call, because the way that the I don't know, I'm so not techie in this, but I don't even know the right word for it. So I'm totally the energy, yeah, the way that the energy and the router and everything works, it's trying to grab your call, and it's looking for who can I connect this call with, and it's jumping up and down. And so that's the highest amount of frequency that you have is when you're picking up a call. So pick it up, like put your hand out, the person can have, wait a few seconds while you put it on speaker, and then bring it back to your, close distance to your face where you're just saying hello. I try to do stuff like that. You're still in your hand. So I don't know if I'm just like, making it, all the radiation's going up my hand or not. I have no idea. But I think it helps to have it near, your brain. And they say really keep it away from your brain and your torso because of your heart and any of your reproductive areas. We keep ours on airplane mode. The only issue with airplane mode at night when we go to sleep is that you can't receive any phone calls. So if you need to be able to receive a phone call in the night, or you're a caretaker or you have kids, I would suggest keeping the phone out of your room, or at least like 12 feet away from your head, 10 feet away. Just don't plug it in while you're sleeping and stick it under your bed, because you will get a massive dose of radiation that way. And there is studies to back that one up. Another thing is houseplants. There are certain houseplants that are known to absorb excess EMF radiation. So that's a good one. And if you go to the Toxin Free in 12 Months ebook, it's in there under March, and you can see all the ways that I listed that are mostly free that we kind of utilize.
Yeah, thank you, Becky. And a couple of simple things I do. Yeah, I've seen enough to give me pause to just keep the phone not up to my head, keep it away from me, not put it in my pocket. And even use these, not use the earbuds, the AirPods, all that stuff, which is better than having the phone up to your head. But these are even better. You write about these in the ebook, safehavensmama.com. The EMF radiation-free air tube stereo earbud headphones. I don't know if these were expensive. I don't think that expensive, but they help you out a little bit. All right, God bless you.
The Gospels record many